depends on the radio link.
রেকর্ডে দিয়ে আসবে।
Here. Here.
এই শান্তি
একদম তোমাদের টেবিলে নিয়ে আমরা কথা বলে সব রেকর্ড হয়ে যাবে
He wants me to repeat this part. You're translating with some quant. You have a transformation diagram. So some expected amplitude and when you transmit, it's not expected. It's what you use for your transmission. You have to represent different beat patterns. You use different amplitude and phase. Anywhere, say this particular amplitude phase represent this pattern, this one phase. So you have a whole different amplitude and phase positions to represent different beat combinations. So when you are transmitting, say you want to transmit some 0, 1, 1 or something, so you use particular amplitude and phase. So that's what like this in the signal pattern, but here you are showing in the constant diagram that is okay, that's my dot, or this one is my dot for current transmission. So at the receiving end, you get that position and then you determine those beats. Okay. Now at the receiving end, you are getting different symbols one after another, and if you keep showing them, okay, on average, and you will get actually many different beats. Because over a good time period, you are showing the average positions. So you are getting all different dots on the different constant diagram. That's how the signal analyzer works. I probably told you that back in USA, in the lab, I did some tests. We had a WiMAX transmitter, and there was at a distant location, we had a signal analyzer. Signal has a display to show the transmission diagram, the received bit dot positions on the display. So at the transmitting ends, definitely it's just what you have here, the ideal amplitude phase you are using for transmission. But on the way in wireless link, wireless is the worst thing that you are studying here. You get things distorted on the way. So the amplitude and phase you receive may get changed. This amplitude and phase may get changed when you receive. So on the display, you find the dots to be dislocated. The received dots may be dislocated. But that depends on the radio link quality. This is what we want to actually highlight here in this discussion. That's the reason for us to discuss it. That there is a dependency on the radio link quality. You have something to do there depending on the quality. So if you have very good quality, as in 100 dB, then on the receiving end you find every dot to be located at its expected position, the expected amplitude and phase. But as the quality degrades, at some instance, at different attempts or instances, you get with slightly different amplitude and phase. Okay, they get distorted. Amplitude and phase differs at different attempts. So on average, you are taking so many, maybe 1,000 instances. And then you find that, okay, everywhere the instances take on many different positions, not exactly the correct position. So the overall picture will be like this in the display. Okay, because different instances are located at different positions. If the quality further degrades, it's not just 10 dB, then they may be dislocated like this, too much shifted. Okay? So at different instances, different atoms, you get different positions. The signal analysis shows an amplitude. Now, the receiving has to actually detect the binary bits eventually. That's all about it. What do you think? Here, would the receiver detect any bit incorrectly? What do you think? For this case, with this reception quality, would the receiver be able to detect all bits correctly, or it wouldn't be? What do you think? Or for this, for SNR 10 dB. That's right, yeah. Exactly here, it will not talk other things. No, it will be. You see that they are dislocated, but still it's not confused with this one. Right? It just have to detect the bits. So whatever it is to some extent, it is dislocated. But the receiver is not confused with the extent of dislocation is not too much to confuse you. They know that okay, it belongs to this position. It's shifted anyway, but so the bits are still correctly received here. But what about here? It's shifted so much that sometimes it gets closer to another original position. Then you're confused. You think that it belongs to this one, but actually it belongs to some other position. Then you relate it to a different bit pattern, where some bits are in error then, not all, but some bits are flipped. That's how bits go in error. Okay? So it always tries to estimate the best probability, which position it may belong to. Okay. Now, so there is actually double dependency. One dependency is the radio link quality. That gives you the amount of shifting. This shifting is estimated using a quantity error vector or error vector magnitude. It says that this is the expected position, but you receive here. The amplitude and phase has changed. So this is the position of the received dot. Now, if you draw a vector from the intended position, then it is called error vector, and its magnitude is called error vector magnitude. Although the magnitude is calculated over a number of instances using RMS. But anyway, basically, conceptually, it is actually the magnitude of this curve. So if your radio link quality improves, then your EPM increases, right? Decreases, right? So radio link quality, when it decreases, then you have more dislocation. So EPM increases. That's the picture. Okay. Now you see that here you are not confused with this EPM because these dots are located dispersely. They are far from each other. It's not crowded. Okay. But if we had too many dots here, because 64 QAM would put 64 dots here. 256 QAM would put 256 dots here, leading to 8 bits per symbol for 256. Transmit 8 bits in a symbol, that's a very good achievement. But then you have the constant diagram too crowded, making the dots denser. Making the whole space denser, making the dots closer to each other. So then what would happen? The same error, EPM, when you have 256 dots here, the same EPM can confuse you. Can actually lead to misdetection. It will relate to some wrong position. Got it? So the second dependency is how the space is crowded, how dense it is, or how the dots are closer to each other. Like here, if we put 64, here it is alright. I say that it is alright, there is no misdetection. But if you have 64 positions, then this much dislocation would already bring you closer to some other position. Okay? This much EPM would already bring you to closer to other, causing leading to missing error. Is it clear? Is the point clear? So if you have good in this case, what you can do, you actually reduce the modulation level. When your SNR falls this low, you're getting too much errors. So what do? You reduce the modulation level to make it less crowded. Then put just 4 dots. So this much dislocation is not an issue there. It will not lead to error. Whereas in this case, you could actually put more dots. Because it's a very small dislocation, a small EVM. So what if you increase the number of dots? Why do you do that? Because if you increase the number of dots, you are sending more bits per symbol. That's an achievement. So why you don't take that advantage? Meaning that depending on the radio quality, you should adjust your modulation level. Right, you have to do that. Okay, so there's a continuous adjustment of the modulation level. In 4G, every millisecond, you can take a new modulation level. So that's happening on your phone. But there's a second thing, adjusted together. And this is something we started. Okay, we explained it, right? So for the same SNR, so the modulation should be adjusted. So if the bits are in error, then there are 2 ways. Did I explain this thing? Take some CRC. I did it. Okay. If there is errors, then there are 2 ways to handle them. First, you use some complex coding mechanism which can try to correct the errors. I'll use a very simple example to explain how this mechanism can work. Secondly, you just detect whether some bits are in error or not, whether some packets have erroneous bits or not. Once you detect, from the receiving end, you send a feedback to the transmitter. These packets are in error. Please send them again. The transmitter will resend them. This retransmission of packets. So these are the 2 ways to handle it. Now for retransmission, first you have to detect. In this case, it actually corrects. Not only detect but also corrects. But here you just detect whether or not you have any error. Then send a feedback and the transmitter will resend. For detection, there are different mechanisms. Detection is a simple technique and there are multiple mechanisms. These 2 are pretty popular, CRC and checksum. You can even do CRC calculation by hand. I did that. And checksum is even simpler. But the way they work, that if you have, digital communication always uses packets of data. So the information you sent, you put here in the packet and that's called payload. Then you add some additional control information, typically as a header. The header has multiple fields. Okay. Each field carries some sort of control information. These are not actual data to transfer. Now, this checksum or CRC, they do some calculation, and it generates a few bits. Those bits, for example, checksum is in TCP. So those checksum bits are just added to one of the field carriers. When the receiver gets the packet, it does a calculation, reverse calculation, and if some bits here get flipped, then the reverse calculation fails. It does the reverse calculation, the checksum fails. So if some bits are in error, then that calculation fails. So it can detect whether all bits have been correctly received or not, whether the packet is fully correct or not. Then if it is in TCP, we'll later discuss TCP IP in very good detail. So if it detects an error, it sends a feedback that okay, this particular packet, so the transmitter sends the packet again. So this is for retransmission. But the problem is, TCP uses checksum, whereas the CRC is also used in some, like Ethernet uses CRC. No, CRC also works this way. On the payload, you do a calculation. CRC calculation is little longer. Now, the problem with retransmission is that you are repeating a transmission. So the link has certain capacity. That capacity you are consuming for what you said earlier, repeating. So actually it makes the transmission ineffective. And a third time the transmission may fail. You then have to third time retransmit. So you are retransmitting, that is just taking up some resources. So your original transmission get less resources. So retransmission makes so that overall data rate actually gets lower. So if the errors are too much, then retransmission. So for example, with the modulation we explained, if you raise your radio link has got better. Try to get my point, please. If you have an open-ended lab today, you're all preparing for it. It's very good. You're preparing for that. But people who are not busy with open-ended lab, please have good attention. So if the radio link quality gets better, so you improve your modulation level. But if you increase the modulation too much, then it will be too crowded. Then that can lead to actually many packets in error. Then the retransmissions will be too much. And the retransmissions can outweigh the gain in your data rate. You increase the modulation level to put more bits in sample. But the retransmissions can outweigh and the overall data rate can degrade. So modulation level you should increase, but only as much as deemed appropriate. So you have to cope with the radio link quality. Neither too high, not too low. Also low. If there are more errors, then retransmission will be more, right? So that consumes the resources, that decreases the total capacity. Okay, so that's about retransmissions. Now about the first choice. In this case, you use some method. Let's use a very simple example which is never used, just for explanation purpose. Let's take this. Say you want to transmit 0 or 1, but instead of sending just 0 or 1, what you do, you send 3 zeros to actually mean 0. You send 3 ones to mean 1. Why do that? Because some bits can get flipped on the way. So when you are, the receiver may receive all no bits are flipped. It will recognize 0. But if one bit gets flipped, 0, 0, 1, this is what it receives. On the way, one bit has got flipped. Then the receiver knows, it should be all zeros or on one, so it is corrupted. If that falls, it finds 2 zeros, more zeros than 1. So it decides 0. So any bit can be flipped, but your detection is correct. Meaning that the errors have been corrected. You have some errors on the way, but the errors have been corrected using some technique. This is an example of correction technique. This type of technique, okay, similarly if you have one, a bit can be blamed on the way, but you still, after polling, you decide correctly. No, it's not, I mean, there is no control. So, in this case, you had no, I mean, these are the reception, different receipt. You receive all once. So you know that no errors have occurred. It's an error free occurred, transmitted. Okay, the receiver, in this case, it has received 110. One bit has flipped on the way. Then it knows that, okay, all should be 1 or all should be 0. But I have received 1 and 0, so there has been some error. Then it polls. It finds more 1 than 0. So then decides 1. So actually it has received correctly. So the errors have been corrected. So these are error correction techniques, and there are many correct techniques like that. They are called coding or line coding. This type of corrections are called line coding or only coding. In practice, people use very complex coding techniques. This is a good list of the popular coding techniques, but I would say the bottom codes are, I mean, more popular now. But I mean, towards the bottom, you have more and more effective coding techniques requiring longer processes. Like turbo codes and LDPC are the most popular codes now. They are the most advanced codes. But both of them require very long processing. Only the modern electronics can actually support this long processing. So this technique, I mean, it would not have been possible in the past to use this type of coding, but now it is possible. 3G, for 3G convolution code was most popular. As I said that, I mean, towards bottom you have more processing. Convolution code has much less processing. And a combination of these two had a very popular use. Convolutional turbo code. It is then called CTC, convolutional turbo code, which has processing and capability in between the two. I mean, more processing power you need than convolution coding, or processing power or time. But the performance is also somewhere in between. So it depends also on the, I mean, hardware capability, which one you can support. Eventually, there has been a very good competition between turbo and LDPC. A lot of researchers have been working on this thing, especially turbo and LDPC. We have a faculty member, Dr. Rakibul Islam, who works in the LDPC area. But eventually, in this tug of war, LDPC has won. But it also depends on the case, okay, which one would work better. I mean, type of the situation. It's not independent. But you can say that in general, in most cases, LDPC does it better. Okay, WiMAX use LDPC. Now, in this case, you see, we are not using any feedback and retransmission. Just in one go, you are trying to correct them, right? Just by adding for you to forward transmission. This, I mean, from transmitter to receiver is forward. Anything you receive from the receiver is a reverse, forward and reverse terms are used. So in the forward transmission, you are only trying to incorporate the correction correction mechanism. So this one is called fault error correction or APC. Right. Now the reason we need to discuss it here in this link adaptation is that let's assume that your radio link has got further words. Okay. And more than one bit may get clipped on the way. What do you do then? Instead of sending 3 bits to represent 1 bit, you send 7. Okay? Or say 5. You're sending 5 zeros to represent 0 or 5 ones to represent 0. Now out of 5, if even 2 bits are clipped, the receiver can still poll and decide that it is 0. So it can even now correct 2 bits in your correction attempt. But what cost does it come with? If you send 5 bits instead of 3, your correction capability increases. Correction capability increases. But the additional bits are called parity bits. You have 2 parity bits there, right? Anyway, so what is the cost? It comes with the correction capability increases, but what is the cost for this benefit? Slow, it gets slower because to inform 1 bit, you have to send 5. Here also you have to send 3. So that makes things actually ineffective, or overall data rate, overall information transfer rate actually decrease. It is yeah, of course. Okay, I'm coming on to that point. Now, there is a term code rate which tells how many information bits are you sending and what total bits are sending is the denominator, and what actual information bits you have in there. So there is the code rate. So here the code rate is what? 1/3, right? The total bits are 3, but the actual information is 1. So it is 1/3 here. So if you make it 1/5 in our example, the capability increases, but the overall data rate is 1/5. Here 1/3. It's even lower. Meaning that depending on the radio quality, depending on the radio link quality, your code rate should be adjusted. And that's how it is done. Along with the modulation, code rate is also adjusted. But this type of simple technique is never used. Rather, as I said, very complex techniques are used. Very complex, very long calculation, which requires very long processing. Okay. Even these days, the processing time gets significant. So, these long processes make things more effective, coding techniques are more efficient. Like their correction capability compared to how many bits they need extra. Okay. Compared to their code rate, the correction capability is better with smarter coding techniques. But the code rate, for any technique you use, the code rate is adjusted. And it is adjusted along with the modulation. These two are adjusted together, so it is called modulation and coding scheme. Sorry, I wrote it somewhere. Anyway, modulation and coding scheme, because they are adjusted together, MCS. See, the way it is done, if you are getting closer to the base station, the signal from the desired base station is higher, and you are further from the other base stations, so the interference is lower, so the CI inner has increased. That will lower your EVF, right? And when EVF is lower, what you should do, you should increase your modulation level and your code rate. Maybe you are using 16 QAM, now increase it to 64 QAM. You are using 1/3 code rate, increase it to half. So this is called, adjustment of MCS or. So then you are sending actually more bits, more actual information bits, and your data rate will increase. But if you don't handle correctly, for example, you have moved further away, lower CINR and higher AVM is increased, but you have still increased your MCS. What will happen there? There will be many more errors. Oh, yeah, guys. Okay, I told you in the beginning that you can study, you can do whatever you want to here in the class, but without disturbing our regular discussion. So study individually. Group study is not allowed. Okay? So everybody can prepare for your open-ended lab, but just prepare on your own. So that will cause a higher retransmission, which you wanted to increase the data rate here by increasing, but it will outweigh your attempt of it. Okay? Too many years, that will degrade the overall data. So similarly, if you in this case you are increasing, but if you increase MCS too much, then retransmission will outweigh, and instead of higher, you will get lower data rate. Okay. Now, this is a table from the specification of 5G. 5G uses 27 MCS level. These are fixed from this given the specification. Everybody has to use this MCS combination. These modulation levels and these code rates are permitted. You have to divide these numbers by 1024. So that leads to some spectral efficiency. Okay, BPS per hertz. So depending on the radio link quality, dynamically it selects one of the MCS levels. If it gets better, for the next transmission, a higher MCS level. It gets worse, it may be moving. Okay, some will go further, some will get closer. So accordingly, it will keep selecting. So it has to keep monitoring the radio link quality and then keep selecting MCS for the next transmission. And it can adjust every millisecond. LTE allows taking decision for new MCS on every millisecond slot. You see how dynamically it may not change the MCS every millisecond, but there's the frequency permitted. So very dynamically things are adjusted. So you actually add up to the radio link quality. You add up your MCS based on the radio link quality, and this is called adaptive modulation coding, or AMC. So this is a strong feature, always in use. Now these are the modulation levels supported in the cellular technologies. GPRS used just GMSK. GMSK is a variant of SSK, so you have just one bit in a sample, that's it. But H has the options of both GMSK and HPSK. Hey, guys, group study is not permitted, okay? Stand on your own. So if your radio link goes better, then most levels switches to HPSK, 3 bits in a symbol. However, you have for GPRS 4 MCS levels. With that only one modulation level, but 4 different code rates. So depending on the radio quality, GPRS, when you see 2.5G, it changes within it adjusts within these 4 code rates. But if you use 8, then you have additional 5 levels. In 8 PSK, there are 5 additional code rates. So in total, there are 9 levels. So it varies within these 9 levels. With HSDPA, there are 16 MCS levels. HSDPA permits, say, the original HSDPA permits UPSK at 16 QAM. HSDPA permits only BPSK. HSDPA Plus, which is 3.75G, permits 64 QAM in downlink and 16 QAM in uplink additional. For LTE, it started with UPSK 16 QAM and 64 QAM for both downlink and uplink. In release 12, 256 QAM is supported in downlink. Later in release 14, that modulation support was added to uplink too. From 5G releases, 1024 QAM is added in theoretically, in the spec. It depends on the operator or whether you are implementing it or not. 1024 QAM is supported in both uplink and downlink. As you can see, uplink capabilities are always little, it may be little less. There are 2 reasons. Okay, I haven't included everything. Sometimes few things few things come up and so I discuss. I discuss it also in other sections. That's why the uplink may have lower capabilities. Even when in LT, you may have support for all UPSK 16 for 64 for both downlink and uplink. But when you check test data, you see that the downlink may be using 64 QAM, but uplink may be using 16 QAM. You use some bidirectional data transfer, but with uplink, the practical modulation level may be lower. Why is it so? Because uplink has more challenges than the downlink for 2 reasons. First of all, the transmit power can be lower in uplink. For downlink, you are connected to bulk power, so you can transmit power as much as you want. But for uplink, you transmit from your phone, which you recharge for transmission. So you should be more careful about what power you're using that consumes your battery. Okay, but still the uplink power is for phones, the maximum uplink power can be 33 dBm, which is pretty high. Whereas in downlink, I have seen, to my experience, the maximum I have seen 49 dBm, but that's very rare. But 43 dBm, many base stations can use. Anyway, 40 is quite sufficient for most cases. Anyway, and in urban areas it can be around 30 or even less, because base stations are very close to each other. Well, the second reason which make uplink more challenging is that in downlink, you know the location of transmission is fixed. Always the base station is transmitting. But in uplink, the locations, the sources of your power are not predictable. They take on different positions. For different frequencies, they also change their position. So the interference management is a lot more challenging in uplink. By interference management, I mean that somebody else, in a different cell, somebody else using the same frequency, and you have no idea that that guy will be so close, and it may, after a while, it may go further. So they are changing position. So the management is more tricky, more difficult. So that makes the data rate capability lower in uplink. Okay. Now here you see that the number of MCS levels have been gradually increased. It was in the beginning it was 4, then 9, then 16. Now with LTE or 5G, how many MCS levels do you have? Yeah, yes, then. hey guys, how many MCS levels you can use in 5G? I mean, I'm asking you because it looks like you are not discussing on OpenNL lab. It may be something else. So you have 27 levels. So the number of MCS. So can you tell me the benefit? Why advanced techniques are increasing the number of MCS levels? Did right? How? Oh, it's not the correct one. Oh, that's about the coding technique. I'm asking why you have higher number of MCS levels, 3, 4, 9, 16 and 27. So why they have increased? If you want to increase the data rate, your modulation level can be higher, code rate can be higher, but I'm not talking about modulation level or code rate. That I already spoke of here. Okay, with better technologies, your modulation level is higher, definitely. But now I'm talking about the number of MCS levels, which you see here 27, so many. It was only 4 in 2G days. Within 2G, 4 levels, they used to vary depending on the radial link quality. The radial link quality is changing like before, right? The variation of radial link quality, and the environment hasn't changed. It's the technology that has. So in the same way, the radial quality is varying, it's changing. So why they have increased? Okay, the point is, you can better tune. MC, the number of MCS levels have increased. One of your problems is that you don't read out what I have put already. If you read out, then you can answer easily from there. It's already there. You could better tune, like you see that the radial link quality keep varying. And your MCS level should cope with the radial link quality. If it is higher, you have more retransmission. If it is lower, then you could put more bits in the symbol. You are not utilizing your resources. So both ways, your data rates are affected, right? So if you have more granularities, if you adjust your MCS throughout more levels, then you actually can better optimize, better tune, better optimize your MCS level, better tune to the current. That makes things more complex. So in the beginning, it was difficult to address the higher complexity, but now it is. So in 27, you are more optimized. Your MCS level is more optimized. Throughout the 27 levels, the granularity is higher. So that's the point. Now, 5G does not dictate you to have this 1024 QAM capability. You can implement 5G with the same 4G and modulation capability, like 64 QAM. That can be your maximum modulation level. 256 QAM can be your maximum modulation level. Or 1024 can. It depends on your implementation. That's why, if you go into the spec, you'll find, I think it's from spec number 36.213. Sorry, 38.213. I mean, for physical layers, 38.211, 212, 213, and 214. Okay. Out of them, these three are more important. It is from either 213 or 211. So you can check there. You can download this 3GBP spec. GBP technical specification. So you'll find there 3 tables as such. Why 3? In this table, the maximum number is 10 here. Most level, 1024. You will find another table where the maximum value is 8. That's the one you need to use when your maximum modulation is 256 in the implementation. But there is still 27 levels. There is a third table with the maximum number 6, with 64 as the maximum coupling. But that you at least have to have 4 So then, but they all have 27 MCS levels. There are actually a few other rows there, but the rest 5, 0 through 31, the rest 5 are used for some other purposes, which we explain in the cellular computer. Okay. Similar tables you can also find for uplink in the same state. Now, these things are adjusted on the fly, dynamically as you are transferring data. Oh, sorry. These things you need to adjust. Like AMC I have explained today. Transmit power control. This is something I explained before. That as you are going further, path loss is increasing, so you receive less power. So the transmit power is then increased. You come closer, transmit power is decreased. It is always done in both down and up. All these 4 are dynamically adjusted. Always, every millisecond you can change these things. All these 4 things you can change on LT every millisecond. So the transmit power is controlled. But now there's been a good question in section A. That if I increase the power, then my receipt power may not change. Then how come my modulation coding level needs to be changed? You got it? Say if you get further away, and I'm saying that on the one hand I'm saying that MCS should change because CINR is changing, radial frequency is changing. But if you use transmit power, if you increase transmit power, then why is that changing? The answer is, say, if you are not understanding anything, please let me know. Let me tell you that I'm from Buet, and the classroom teaching in Buet is very poor. For only a few teachers, maybe 5% teachers, who could learn from the classes, or maybe 7-8% teachers who could learn from the classes. In the rest, the teachers probably have no intention to really make people learn. Okay? Check with other public universities. Just ask them how much you learn from the classes. They learn, I don't mean that they are not learning well. They are learning, but they are learning on their own. তারা সুশিক্ষিত, কিন্তু তারা স্বশিক্ষিত. But here at our university, alhamdulillah, the classroom teaching is, I think, a lot better than those universities. Probably it is better than other private universities too. Okay. I'm saying it out of some actually bad feelings, because there has been some comments about the teaching quality at this university, which I absolutely don't agree with. It was a misconception, or probably it is spread around our country, some misconception about our university, and I don't know what quality we can get this time in the admission intake. Okay, after all this, misconception. These are not, it's a, wrong notion. Anyway, what I was discussing? Oh, sorry, I forgot. Sorry, my classroom teaching is getting worse. Oh, the question from section A. Yeah, like you see, the receipt power changes as you go further away from the base station, because the path loss changes. So you're going further away, So I assume that the path loss is increasing. So that reduces your receive power. So now TPC means transmit power control. You should boost your transmit power. So you increase your PT. So that can hold PR constant as you're going further. Okay, PR can be held constant. If your PR is constant, then assuming no interference changes, your MCS level also doesn't need to be lowered. You don't need to decrease MCS, right? Got it? Now the point is, this is never done. You increase PT, but not to fully compensate the drop in, the increase in PL. You rather partially compensate. Always, the real network, you increase power to partially compensate the changes here, not fully. Why is it so? Any idea? It's an increase. Why you cannot increase PD? Because you don't have enough power? No. In communication, people is very low power. It's power capable. The point is, you are causing interference to others, to other cells. Power is very sensitive because you always, there are other cells which you are always causing interference to. With whatever power you have, you are always interference. You cause more interference then. So be very careful how much power you use. It's not only about your own link, but the links in other cells. So you increase, but not too much. You partially compensate. Meaning that your PT you are increasing, but still your PR is dropping. So you need adjustment of MCS too. All these four things are adjusted dynamically. Another point we have here, channel dependent scheduling. It's like you see that say a father has two sons, maybe these two, but he can use the property very well, utilize the property very well. But he is wasteful, he wastes a lot of money and all that. So what the father may do, he can give most of his property, 80%, 90% to him, and only a little to him. Oh, sorry, he looks unhappy. Just because he can make good use of it. So now in the cell, someone is closer. So the same 100 kilohertz, and someone is further away, okay? The same 100 kilohertz, if allocated equally, okay, if I allocate equally, then the one closer can use actually high MCS. Out of 100 kilohertz, he can transfer actually a lot of bits, very high bit rates, okay, a lot of data will be transferred. But the other guy with the same 100 kilohertz uses very low MCS. It doesn't make good use of it, use of the resource. So what does base station do? They give the closer users a lot more resources compared to the other guy. Because then he can use more efficiently whatever resources you allocate. So you lose multiple ways when you go further. Your power drops, the guy increases power, base station, but not to fully compensate. Your power will drop. Then you have to use interference will increase from other cells you're getting closer. CNR drops, your MCS drops, and you also get lower resources because you know that he cannot make good use. The radio base station allocates less resources or frequency bandwidth. Okay? So this is called channel dependent scheduling. In fact, it covers some other things too, like that you get my point. It's not easy to explain, but in the real environment, it's like light. The actual transmission, we don't see the transmission, but if you could see, it's like you turn on a light, and the light goes, pervades some area. It's another light. So in the real environment, people are someone is making a call. There are some radiations. There's some radiation, which is causing some interference. So interference are I mean, if you could see, then we could better understand. But things are happening in a very, I'd say, in a way that is very complex, difficult to have good management. But radio engineer's job is to manage it better and better. So what happens? Different people in the same cell can have radio link quality, or the same guy can have radio link qualities different at different frequencies. Maybe the total bandwidth there 10 megahertz from the base station. But all frequencies don't have equal quality at the same distance. Because for some parts of the frequency, someone else in the nearby cell is using the same frequency, so causing some interference. Okay? But while talking, he moves through the cell. He goes to the other side. Now in this side, that frequency is good. Some other frequency chunks is now worse here. Because now he is closer to another cell, but someone is using a different frequency. So it depends on your position, which frequency parts may be good or not. Different parts will have different ones. And that's how it is handled. Channel dependent scheduling means it checks the qualities of different parts of the bandwidth for different users. Accordingly, they allocate which frequency will be allocated to whom, and also what bandwidth. Both your carrier frequencies and bandwidth are allocated with a dynamic scheduling. This is called channel dependent. So things are, I mean, it may sound surprising, but that is how it is really done on your phone, on the real network. More resources, yeah. Finally, there is fourth thing, multiple antenna techniques. Okay, MIMO also has parameters which are also dynamically adjusted. Later in the course, inshallah, we'll cover the basic concepts of MIMO. Okay, I think we are close to one, right? Any questions so far? Let me take that. Well, we're supposed to take extra classes, makeup classes, right? In section A and B. Because we missed the class on Monday. But when would you like to have that? I don't mind if it is online.